What's up, guys? So I recently upgraded from a 3600 to a 5600X. I've already got the video uploaded onto my computer because I did it with the phone, and I wanted to share the hardware side of the upgrade done from a casual perspective, because even though I have a YouTube channel, like, I've got thousands of videos up, I don't do it as a tech tuber professional thing. Like, I do this as a hobby. I do tech support for free, in-depth tech support for anyone that comments on my channel as a hobby. I've been building since I was about 14 years old. My first computer was an Athlon 64 4000, which was a single core. So this was before even dual cores. And I've been basically overclocking and undervolting ever since, but I never made myself a public figure. I'm not into that, because that would turn it into a for-profit thing rather than a for the love of computing thing. I'm not saying that you can't, but that's just where I am. Like, I have other priorities in my life with my family and things like that. So anyway, I just wanted to share it, the install. So this is the video here.
What's
I'm
up?
actually going to play it. I'm going to, cut to that after finishing talking. And basically, I wanted to share it because I did this from a really casual perspective, and it's different to what all the big tech channels show you. So when you see a big tech channel, they'll have like a studio set up with their special tools. They'll tell you you need this, this, and this. And it actually, even as an experienced user that's been building for however long, it's a little bit intimidating for me. I'm like looking at it thinking, really? You need like you need scissors, you need a knife to build a computer when you don't. Um, and so I just wanted to share at least this casual upgrade from a 3600 to a 5600X. And to be honest, anyone can critique this. You can say whatever you want, but I wasn't rushing, for number one. And number two, I needed to be able to drop everything and be distracted at a moment's notice because I've got kids. So basically, I did it with the computer standing up. I didn't want to lay it down on its side and have it in a position where my kids could suddenly come in the room. Like, say, I go to get a drink, and next thing you know, my kids are in here touching stuff. I actually did it with the computer standing on the table vertically. So that's where it's a little bit different. And it's from a very casual perspective. So if you're not that confident and you're planning on doing an upgrade, I will definitely recommend lay the computer down. You could still do it exactly the same way I did it, but laying down so that you're not at risk of accidentally dropping anything. Because if you go to remove the CPU, as the main example, and your fingers are not that dexterous, like you haven't done that kind of thing very much. I've done a lot of work on computers standing vertically where I haven't had to move them from their position. If you're not that confident, lay it down, because yeah, if your finger slips for some reason, you could drop your old CPU and damage pins, or you could accidentally push the wrong way on a new CPU and damage pins, which will basically be a big hassle to repair or actually damage your CPU to a point where it won't run. So yeah, just a warning there. I did it standing up. I removed the CPU standing up. I removed the cooler standing up. Everything was done standing up, including pasting it. And I wanted to just share that to show you what someone with 10 years of experience might do at home, rather than a studio setup where everything's kind of scripted. Be aware of that. If you're not that confident, then laying down and removing components to get better access is recommended. So especially if you've got a pre-built and you've never done it before, then you're more likely to have an easier time if you fully unplug everything, remove your graphics card, remove your RAM, get as much clearance as possible, so you're not trying to squeeze your fingers into small spaces where you haven't done it before. So in saying that, if you do watch this video, you'll see me doing all that I've just described. I don't remove the RAM. I don't remove the graphics card. I don't unplug anything really other than turning the switch off at the back. So even the power and all the peripherals are still plugged in. I just do it on this desk here, my home desk. It's just very casual setup, mouse, keyboard. Actually, the keyboard could use some dusting. But yeah, it's a casual setup. It's not a professional studio setup where I care so much about how it looks. So anyway, I'll play the video now. You can skip through it. You don't have to watch the whole thing. It was all done in one take, just so you're aware. So one take, and I've only clipped parts where I walked away to wash my hands, or if I rambled on a bit too long, because I actually paused to talk during the video. And I clipped those parts out because they're just unnecessary, and they're just going to they ended up making the video too long and too tedious to watch. So I tried to clip it as much as possible, but it was still one take. So just so you're aware. And yeah, at the end, I'll quickly go over what's happening with my tuning video, because I've got some stuff to say about the current videos that are up on YouTube, based on my own experience, that there's just a lot of misleading info going around right now. So anyway, enjoy the video, and I'll see you at the end. Cheers.
What's up, guys? So the 5600X arrived today from Lazada. I got it from a store called Game Center for 16.5K, and it is retail boxed. I'll just show you I've already taken it out of the packaging. Retail boxed, and you know, it's got the AMD Philippines 3-year warranty sticker on it. I don't know how legitimate that is, but it looks legit. AMD.ph.com. And yeah, it's just a little disclaimer, you know, I don't think this is necessary for your warranty claim, even though the store says it is. But they put that on there, so, you know, best to keep the box and stuff anyway. And I've already checked it. There's no bent pins. It looks 100% legit. Because I am a 3600 owner, obviously. And you can see the details here. Diffused in USA and Taiwan, made in China, 2020 AMD. And yeah, this is a Rakk Haliya ATX, probably one of the best budget cases in the world. And yeah, I'll go out there and say it because it is. For about 50 bucks, 60 bucks Australian. It's got a magnetic front panel where you can put in filters and, you know, easy to clean, triple front intake. And then the hinged side panel. Like, I haven't seen a case this well featured for even at higher price points. So anyway, I'm going to do the CPU swap right here on camera, and we'll see how long it takes me. So mainly turning the switch off at the back is all you really need to do, and you know, have a screwdriver for removing your cooler. One sec. We'll see if I stuff this up and knock my cooler out of its socket. There we go. And once the bottom one's loose, it's easier to get to the top one. Maybe. I just need more of a nail. Why did I cut my nails? Like, the worst thing you can do when trying to get these spring clips off is cut your nails. It's just there, but I don't have a nail to... There we go. Okay, I have a tiny nail. There we go. So yeah, that's the dust of half a year or so. The fan... Yeah, I can unplug the fan just to get it out of the way. Actually, do I want to? I could just sit on top of the graphics card and be lazy as F, just like that. Because all I really need to do is access the cooler screws. Yeah, we'll see this. We'll see how I go. I'm just going to experiment here. I have not done this kind of a CPU upgrade, because I was with Intel for how many years? Since getting back into computing, because I took a break when I moved to Philippines. In the same clearance, it's just the only difference is my nails are short. Okay, I think I got it. I think I got the, okay, there we go. So, just so I don't forget, these clips go like this. I'm trying to do here, I've just got the fans hanging out, and I just want access to the cooler itself, the heatsink. And it's just 4 screws, and Bob's your uncle. And cleaning. Okay. Do I want access to the back plate just to make sure it doesn't fall out? Yeah, I should remove the side panel. Okay. So the backplate's good though, because they clip in, so it shouldn't just come loose, but it's just more for the fact that when I'm unscrewing it, I don't know what's going to happen. If it might come loose, I definitely want to make sure. Okay, so I swear I did not use this screwdriver the first time. What did I use? Do I have another screwdriver? Maybe I did use this one. I mean, it's working, it's just... Yeah, no, it's working. I just need to push a bit harder. It's on the springs. So this could turn into a disaster. But what I'm doing is I'm going for the bottom ones first because this is a side removal. Just because for the camera it makes it a bit easier for me. And doing that, I think I'll have to lay it down though for putting it back on. Like, it's just going to be too hard. So now that these are, no, the springs are still pretty good. Guess I just need to keep screwing until it falls off. It's going to fall onto the GPU backplate. Maybe. Let me just see. Can you see the disaster waiting to happen if I keep unscrewing all three of these? No, I don't think that'll happen. I also haven't warmed the CPU up. I didn't do the benchmarking thing. I am running some good paste though. Oops. I am running some better paste, so it's not, where did that even go? It's not the exact same as removing a stock cooler paste. I don't even know where that freaking screw went. It flew. It sprung off. How did I get these on here? Okay, that one's ready to come off. So I've got one. Got two. This is not a speed run, obviously, so don't think I'm trying to do it as fast as possible. I'm literally just taking my time so I don't screw it up too much. And we're going to see if the infamous AM4 socket flies off by itself. Pulls the whole CPU out of the socket or not. Because I'm going to just do a basic twist and remove. Geez, that took a lot of twisting. Okay, so it does feel firm, like when I twist it a little bit, but no, that came off easily. So you can see, oh, there was the last screw. It was actually in the cooler heat pipes somehow. So yeah, you can see the 3600 on there. That was with Noctua NTH1. There's the spread. It doesn't look like there was any leakage, like based on the gaps here that you're seeing. If I put it a little bit closer, you can actually see that it was perfect coverage. I did do the manual spread method and I ran it undervolted. So because of the lack of heat, because it wasn't running hot, basically, to begin with, it never got up to like 80 C. The thermal paste did not, what is it called? There was no pump out. There was basically no pump out effect. It's literally caked on there and matching to the pattern that it came off with. So you can see that pattern right up at the CPU. There's like a bare spot here and a bare spot here, and it's matching up with what's on the heat pipes. See that? Anyway, not a big deal. I just wanted to share this part because some people will complain and say you can't do it this way or you can't do it that way. Not a big deal. Just twist it, have some good paste on there. If you're running stock paste, warm it up. But the basic twist, it feels a bit firm at first when you go to twist it. And then once it starts moving a little bit, you can just go back and forward a few times, and then it just comes off. I didn't even pull on it, really. I just twisted it a few times back and forth. And I was also limited because of the mounting brackets. I could only move it like, you know, a centimeter. I only had that much wiggle room, and it still worked. So anyway, let's see. I'll just get some isopropyl. I think I've got some here. I've actually got some, what is this, 99% isopropyl from Shopee. This was 200 pesos. That will last me forever. And I'll just clean up the cooler first. You guys want to watch that part? I'm just using a literally, like, I don't have expensive microfiber cloths or anything. I'm just literally using a toilet tissue. It's not a big deal. It's because the microfiber cloths, you can, like, they're better for cleaning it, but I find it's better to save your microfiber cloths for the last part, like where there's just that tiny bit of paste left, and polishing it up, rather than using your expensive, well, not really expensive, you can get them pretty cheap nowadays. You can get a big bulk pack of microfiber cloths, but I mean, it's, even if it's saving a few bucks, like, why use your expensive stuff? It's not going to deform the CPU plate or anything like that using a tissue. It's just that you don't want to leave any tissue residue behind. And you can see there that actually did work pretty well. And then I'll do the same with the CPU. You can see that. So I used literally tissue, and if you don't have 99% isopropyl, 70% has worked for me in the past. Alrighty. So, while I do this, I have to, like, go sideways so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to get this here, and then just gently push on the release pin, push it down, and then it should move. Just keep a little bit of pressure on the CPU to stop it dropping completely out. And one sec, I've got a little bit of, there we go. You got to push it, like, you push it so it goes vertical, the little lever, and then the CPU will literally just pop out. And you can just have a quick look there. So there's the spillover. I'll tidy that up now, actually, before I put it down. It wasn't that bad, but it is on my fingers because of having to grab it. I should have thought about that, but it's also very hard to clean the spillover off from the socket anyway. So just sit this here very carefully. So just, like, make sure of however you're orienting it. If you're working laying down, you'd also have to be aware of that. And can I just carefully pick this up? We'll just do a quick pin check before I put it in. Do you see any bent pins? Nope, looks good. Now the hard part is, how do I get it into the socket sideways? Okay. Like this, top left, so the logo will be sideways facing that way. And I'm not going to bother trying to explain it any further. I'm just going to gently sideways install. And basically I just lined up the top row. That's all I had to worry about doing. And the lever should go down with very little, what's it called? With very little effort. It shouldn't, like, crunch or anything like that. Although my 3600 did crunch. So that's it. It's in there. That wasn't actually as hard as I thought it would be. And now I'm going to do my card pasting, which thankfully, because the NTH1 isn't too runny, I can do it like this. Like, you can just, like, watch. How am I going to do this? On the card first or on the CPU first? No, that's going to be a disaster. I think the card first is the safe method. Will that be enough? Me old tourist card. So how would I normally do it laying down? I'd just kind of do it like this. I'd just get some on there. Like that. But the cooler mounting hardware is making it a little bit hard to get to. It's nothing perfect. Like, if I can just try to get this camera to focus. It's just a thin layer. It's not perfectly even. There's a little bit of layering going on at the bottom. Like, it might be a little bit thicker at the bottom. That doesn't matter. All I care about is coverage. So anyway, that's it. I just need to line up these, and when I screw everything together, it should just trying to line up all four sides. Okay, so that's lined up. And then what I'll do is start with the top or bottom? Top left. Top left was the easy one to reach. So I'm just holding it on with one finger, with my thumb. And then I'm going in and feeling with my middle finger. Where is the head at? There it is. So this is purely by feel, and this is because if you've built computers for a while, so maybe I wouldn't recommend this method for most people, but I'm not actually looking at what I'm doing. I'm literally just going by I use my finger to feel where the thread was and got it on there. And that's because I've had a lot of experience with replacing PSUs with the system still intact. And I'm used to using these two fingers to undo the power and also to plug them in without seeing what I'm doing. So that's like a skill I've developed. I should have recorded when I swapped this PSU in, actually, because I swapped out my Seasonic and put the Corsair in here, because the 6700 XT is here. And, yeah. Like, if you could see me right now, my face is literally facing another part of the room while I'm doing this. So it's kind of like more about just knowing what you're feeling. And that was it. Like, it's already on there. 30 minutes later. But in terms of technical errors, I haven't had any. I would have done it a little bit quicker if I wasn't recording and trying to angle the camera and all that stuff. But in terms of the time it would have taken to remove the GPU, put the case on its side, I've saved a little bit of time there too. So it's not a massive deal. The hardest part will probably be putting the fans back on, to be fair. They're the most annoying part, but I can actually grab them better with my fingers now that they're not forced in. Like, I can get I've got leverage to put my finger into the fan clip, unlike when they're on the cooler. And okay, this one doesn't want to go on. The thread's there. Just wait. I've got to do my meditation thing. See, I'll show you how I hold it. I literally hold it like that, and I somehow find the head, and I just turn it with my two fingers like this. When it's on there, I just turn it like this to get it started. And once they're started, then I screw them in last. And it's just a few turns to get it, to get it seated. And I screwed them in enough that the cooler is not going to move around anymore. So let's just see if I can do this last one. Okay, I had to use my thumb there to actually hold the head of the nut in place, and now I'm using my thumb and my middle finger. Sorry, you probably can't see this on camera because it's hidden behind everything, but I'm not looking through the top of the case at all. This is just how I do it. So interesting skills, I guess, because I haven't seen any tech tubers doing this kind of thing. So they're all threaded on there now, and all I have to do is maybe start at the top right, screw it in until I feel a bit of pressure. I might not feel any pressure. And now that I've got the, and then I'll go to the bottom left, so diagonally. But I'm not tightening them all the way down, obviously. I'm just screwing in until I feel the spring start to rub on the plate, on the contact plate, through the screwdriver. So this is just a basic screwdriver. I feel a little bit of resistance, and then I move over to the next one. And obviously when they're loose, they screw very easily. And as they get tighter, you have to start pushing harder. And then finally the top. And now that I've screwed up the other three, the top will start to go in all the way. And this will be the last CPU upgrade, because obviously the next chipset coming is going to be DDR5. And I'm not going to bother jumping to like a 5800X with a 5600X, because by the time the 5600X becomes obsolete for games, all the other, the other 5th gen won't be far off in terms of whatever we're pushing in a few years' time, whatever resolutions and settings we're pushing. How games evolve with DirectX storage is what I'm interested in, because DirectX storage is supposed to be using the GPU anyway for the what's it called? It's supposed to be using the GPU for the, oh, glad I wasn't pushing then. It's supposed to be using the GPU for the decompiling, or whatever the heck it's called, of the files, decompression. For decompression. So if it's using the GPU for decompression with DirectX storage, it's actually going to make less work for the CPU. And then the only CPU work will be objects and maybe physics, but they've kind of refined everything now. AI, I guess, like in games like Hunt Showdown, but again, they still haven't optimized 6 cores even. 6 and 8 cores are not fully optimized yet. They could get more performance out of a 6 core if they wanted. But the developers kind of leave headroom and don't maximize CPUs because they don't want the CPUs running at 100% and getting too hot. So I don't know, it's kind of a balance. Like having extra cores is helpful in that regard, because if you have more cores, you don't have to max anything out. And then if you have less cores and it's capable of maxing it out, that's where you get the high CPU usage, and then it gets called a bottleneck. But then another game can just be optimized not to max out the CPU, like purposely. So yeah, I'm basically just pushing and turning until I feel like it doesn't want to go anymore, and it stops, rather than trying to force it past that point, because it's not an oil screw, oil nut on a car. Okay, that'll do. So this feels pretty good on there now. But you saw how I did it. So we're going to see what these core temps look like. Just doing final checks. Because sometimes when you tighten up one corner a little bit more, another one gets a little bit more leeway, and you end up with uneven pressure if you don't go back and check the others a little bit. Okay, that's good enough. So now we're going to get these back on here. So this one was exhaust. How is this going to go? Okay, we want it to be straight. I don't want the cable getting caught on the fan. It's the only thing I'm worried about. Okay, so it was about there. And it's just, oh wait, the bottom clip was actually coming off. That's bad. I have to make sure the bottom clip is aligned as I put it in, because if it falls out, it isn't in the right position to be clipped in. It needs to be facing where it is. Okay, what's it getting caught on? Okay, I think that's good. So now Now I just need to, get my finger in here. Push that over the top. It's not fully in. Damn these fans. My fingers have gotten fatter or something, I don't know. Okay, that's in. And then the bottom. Actually, the bottom's not that bad as long as the clip's in. And then I've got to make sure that I'm not squishing the cable. As you can see there, the cable's actually come up a bit. Push that back underneath the fan and the cooler. Get the fan in position. And then the underneath part is literally just with my ring finger. Like that. It's on. So, and then just maybe a little bit of repositioning just to get it centered a bit better. But that's on there. And I think the front fan will be a bit easier because of this angle. Just the angle I'm working with is better. Maybe not. There we go. So as I go down, I just want to make sure I get the fan cable out of the way. Oh, come on. Very unorthodox, isn't it? Isn't it? So I'm just making sure that the fan cable's underneath, not blocking anything. When I pushed on the spring, the actual whole case moved. There we go. That's nice and in. And then the lower part, which is the easy part because it's literally just show you here. It's literally just pushing on the spring. I mean, people should know how to do these spring clips by now. So that's it. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Side panels on. Oops, I'm not lining this up too well, am I? There we go. And this is magnetic. I mean, it's a hinge door. Now here's to hoping it doesn't explode. The number one fear of all PC users is, even if it's not going to happen and you're fairly confident it won't happen, you'll go to turn it on and there'll be like a pop, or the power will come on and then it'll make like a clicking noise and turn off. It's just like a fear factor we all have, I think. It's normal, guys. So that's it. This is one take, basically. I've only paused it a few times when I've had to go off camera to like wash my hands, or when my kids came in the room, but I didn't continue working off camera. Anyway, tidy that up. Moment of truth. Let's turn the power back on. There we go. So devices changed, CPU or memory, the RAM's reset, and it asked me, do I want to try to reload any of my values? Because I do have some overclocking profiles on here for the 3600. But basically I just want to go back into setup because we have to set up the new CPU. So F1, and you can see here 5600X 6 core is showing up as expected. 1.228 volts on that's on the DDR. 1.262 on the V core, and then we want to hit F7 to get into advanced mode. This is where all the profiles and fine-tuning settings are. Like, it's what you want basically when you're trying to, if I can just get this out a bit more, hopefully this is going to be in high enough definition. Yep. And basically I had everything set how I liked with my old CPU, so this isn't going to load those settings per se. It's going to load up all the other configurations that I've set. So it's not going to be able to give me the same vCore and everything I had on the 3600. That would be weird. I don't know if it'll actually let me load itself though. Like, I can try and it might just give me an error that it was for a different CPU. But if it does let me put the values in, It just means that I shouldn't try to boot with those values, but I'll have the rest of my BIOS set up automatically without having to reset it all. So because I am running Windows 11 and I have TPM enabled and all that stuff. So I'm going to go to the profile I was running on the 3600 and I'm going to load that. Yes. It re-enabled XMP. It fixed my boot priority. And the only thing I'd be more concerned about is that I don't want it to be, automatically overclocking the CPU anymore, because that was for the 3600. So I just want to set the CPU back to auto A. And so where I went was OC, and this is the OC setting when you're in advanced mode. So you can see here my RAM set up, the timings I'd tuned on the 3600 should all be there again. So I had not the best timings. It is a cheap kit of RAM. It's around 4K for the Team Group Dark ZA, and 16, 22, 20, like 22, 22, 44 is what I was running basically. And then the default kit is like 18, 22, 22. And then the sub timings are also a little bit adjusted. I think I can squeeze more out of them with the 5600. Like, that is wishful thinking, but it should have a better memory controller. But I'm not going to do that now. This is just to show that I was able to reload my XMP settings and all my other settings. And I just have to make sure that I don't try to save and exit with these settings, because I don't know if these values are applicable anymore to the 5600X. The CCD, IOD, which are, the memory controller and the CCD cores, I might be able to leave them how they were, because it should carry over between motherboard and CPU. Motherboard and the new CPU, because it's the same like basic thing, but I can just set it to auto as well. It's not going to matter too much. I can set auto. This is just to make sure I can boot and I want to get a profile that's stable. So a stock profile basically with the 5600X. And so I've set everything auto except the RAM. I'm leaving the RAM to try to boot at what I was running with the 3600. And then in advanced CPU configuration, did I change anything in here? No, I don't think I did. Apart from I had some PBO limits from the 3600. The 5600X might have slightly different PBO limits, but I actually had them lowered like to match the actual stock limits rather than PBO, which removes the limits. I wanted the limits on with all-core manual overclock. So that's what I'd actually done with the 3600. So I want to keep these how they are, because I want limits in place for when I manually overclock, because that's what I do when I'm learning how the CPU behaves and what my minimum vCore is. So even if I'm going to use a per core overclocking, whatever I'm doing later, when I'm just trying to find the bottom, like the lowest voltage I can go, I want to do it manually. I just find that easier. That's what I'm used to. Even though some of the websites say you can't manually, like it's not good for Ryzen, I got very good results with the 3600, and I was running 4.4 gigahertz and 1.25 volts on a manual OC. So it will depend on this CPU itself, the binning, but I can leave PBO limits because I kind of want them there. I don't want the board itself was actually overvolting when I left the PBO limits default. When I left things default, the vCore was really high. It was up at like 1.38. It didn't need to be that high. And yes, current will affect, it's not necessarily the voltage, it's the current that is important. But at the same time, higher vCore at idle will still be hotter than lower vCore at idle, because it's pulling less current in both situations, but one of them is running a higher voltage. So basically the same current, but higher voltage is more heat. So I did get better results using manual overclocking, even at idle. So yeah, we're going to leave everything else auto. Most of this stuff isn't important. You can just, you can run default settings if you haven't changed your RAM, and you don't have to do what I'm doing now. I'm just showing how you can do it if you had a previous CPU installed and you had your RAM already tuned up. Because the 5600X should be more than capable of running the same timings as the 3600. Otherwise, I would be very concerned about its memory controller. So DG all power, I had LLC at mode 3. And I haven't really studied the minimum, the average vCore that you can run at, because I know the board's going to overvolt it. But I don't want to just jump. I'm not going to jump into anything just yet. I'm just going to leave all that auto. The RAM, was the RAM auto though? I'm pretty sure the RAM needs to be at 1.35, like that. I didn't have it running at 1.2 for this voltage. or 1.36. Oh, it lets me put that in. I'll put it on 1.35 just because that's the XMP voltage of the RAM. If I go into Memory Z, I don't know if it'll show me in here in the XMP information. Oh yeah, it does. It says 1.35 volts for 18, 22, 22, 42. And so basically I had to make sure that because I've kept the XMP on, that I've still got that 1.35 volts active. And I'm not that experienced with overclocking RAM though, just to be aware. Like, I know you can get way more out of these sticks from other reviews I've watched, but I wasn't able to do that with the 3600, especially because of subtiming. Subtimings are still a new territory for me. Even after years of computing, I haven't gone into subtimings until recently. So it's something I'd have to spend an afternoon doing. So other than that, I mean, settings, everything else got reloaded from my previous profile. I don't think I need to worry about any of that. PCIe subsystem, I have it forced on Gen 3, that's all it goes to. Can prevent certain issues, but I think it's all good. I can basically just go to OC profile again, and I'll call this 5600X stock plus XMP, like very straightforward naming. And this is my back to my default profile, and I'm not going to be reinstalling the 3600 obviously at any point, so I can delete. I'm going to clear these profiles so I don't get myself mixed up. And sometimes I'll have a profile named test when I'm testing settings. So that's just some. This section is really important if you're new to tuning. You need to be aware of this, because if you just go tune stuff and you try to you reboot to enable the settings, you save and exit, and it's not stable, you just lost everything you did. You lost your entire BIOS, your fan profiles, everything.
So that's the end of the recording, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I will go into tuning and undervolting, and at this point where I was saving the profiles, I actually ended up jumping straight into all-core, followed by pushing the all-core undervolt higher, as high as I could. I was limited at 4.6, but I don't want to get too into that. I'll leave that for the tuning video. And I also tested PBO. I spent more time trying to tune PBO optimally for what I prefer as a home user, so low temps and low voltage. And what happens with PBO is you get clock stretching when you try to undervolt too low. So basically, the better quality, the better binge your CPU is, the worse your PBO results are going to be compared to undervolting all-core. So, like, basically, PBO cannot match an all-core undervolt at low temps with a budget cooler. But if you have really good cooling and you want temperature limited, then PBO can be better for both single and all-core. So it really depends on your setup. But I think a lot of users, especially in tropical countries on budget setups with budget coolers, will actually benefit more from all-core than from PBO, unless they just don't have time to tune it. So if you don't have time to tune your settings, then obviously PBO is the quick and easy way, but it doesn't necessarily lead to better multi-core performance, which is what you want for games like Battlefield V, anything multi-threaded, which is a lot of the big games these days. So anyway, I'll leave that for the tuning video, and hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.